Welcome to the Big Me Kickoff. I am your host, Kevin Noon. It is Friday, May 31st. Where did the month of May go? I have no idea, but a lot going on right now. Official visits get underway today at Ohio State. Camps get underway next week at Ohio State. So much to talk about. I picked a crummy time to schedule this show, and I will get into that here in a second. But I want to certainly thank our friends at No Naturals for their continued sponsorship and friendship here for the show. So let's read a little commercial. Are you ready for an entirely different edible experience? Welcome to No Naturals, where we're shattering the stereotypes of one-note, slow-acting gummies. Forget waiting over an hour to feel the effects. Our gummies are like a sprinter out of the blocks, fast-acting in just 15 to 30 minutes. Picture this. You're not just choosing a flavor, you're choosing your vibe. With 5 core experiences and 6 custom combos, you're in full control. Whether it's energy and focus without the crash, a peaceful slumber that lasts all night, or a game-changing burst of bliss and euphoria, these edibles are the real deal. And the best part, you don't need a doctor's recommendation. No Natural gummies are dispensary quality and discreetly delivered right to your door. So whether you're craving a productivity boost, who isn't, a good night's sleep, guilty as charged, or some blissful euphoria, always, say hello to No Naturals. Try them today and use code HUDDLE10 for 10% off your order at shop.nonaturals.com. So there you go. We will put that up here in the banner. I will have that down in the show notes. I don't know if I did that in my pre-show prep or if I did not. Show kind of came together quickly, but I am competing, and I don't want to sit there and give people any ideas. This may be a shorter show just based on everything else. The EA college football sneak peek, deep dive, whatever, is there a Niner in there, is out right now. And I did not know the time of that when I scheduled this show, so I'm sure that I've lost some eyes there. I also totally spaced on the fact that the Mark Rogers show is right now. So I probably have cut myself off at the knees. I just didn't want to do a typical 1 p.m. show. I'm trying to find times that work for everybody. And with that, I'm also doing some stuff with the great folks over at WagerWire. You should check them out. Download that in the App Store. WagerWire, one word. Use it to track your bets. So much more coming along. If you like to, if you like to dabble in wagering, safe, in great wagering, use wagerwire.com. If you do find that you are becoming addicted to gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. They have, staff 24/7 to make sure, to help you out there. So don't ever bet more than you are able to. I want to say hello to Mellow number 7. We had the opportunity to have wings and a beer or two in the Southern Swing. So that was really fantastic. We had the opportunity to meet some great people along the way, and that's what this is all about. We can all be anonymous names, whether or not it is on the YouTube channel, which of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell, give us a thumbs up. All of that helps us with the algorithm. When I schedule shows at stupid times, you'll know, hey, Noon schedule a show at a stupid time and make a decision whether or not I want to check it out. But definitely. Mello enjoyed it, said it was an awesome experience. I mean, we had the opportunity, and there was another board member there at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We are in the closing moments. I'm not exactly sure when the promo is going to end, but our spring subscription sale. Get 40% off of an annual subscription, $69.99 as opposed to $124.99. Offer is good for new members, past members, current members. If you're a current member and you have 5 months left on your deal and you want to take advantage of this, you sign up, get another year, then you suddenly have 17 months left on your deal. So We're never going to have a price like this again. That's my guess. This was an important sale and people have jumped on it. Don't miss out. If you've been on the fence about Buckeye Huddle, haven't signed up, why not? We're going into official visit weekend. It has started. Kids are arriving on campus as we speak. And it's not a case of with an official visit. And I'll get to a couple more comments that I've seen in here. And be sure to get your questions and comments in. That is really what these live shows are about. I prepare so little. I have one page of notes next to me. And honestly, I believe that this page of notes will tie into maybe some questions. If Mika Hanna shows up, she loves recruiting. I'm sure she would probably just ask 50 questions if given the opportunity. She's a member over at Buckeye Huddle. So if Mika Hanna's over there, why aren't you over there? I just totally spaced on where I was going to go with that. So let's just keep going on here. Matthew Miller hopped in real quick to have a break from hopped in real quick. Why have a break? Finish concrete in a sec when it gets a bit harder. I've got a fun story about that. On our back patio, we got our patio done during COVID when everybody else and their uncle was doing home improvement, things of that type of nature. So the company we went with had to subcontract out our deal. Well, the two guys that were there, first of all, it should have been a 3-man crew. That was part of the problem. So you can kind of see where we're going with this one. It was a really hot day. I mean, a really hot day. And the concrete slab that they poured just got, it dried too quickly. I mean, on them. So it was an absolute nightmare situation. We ended up getting it all fixed up. I ended up upgrading a little bit of what was there, but wow, concrete work is something like I watched my dad do some of that when I was growing up. I'm like, I don't want to do that. He's like, you're going to want to pay attention and do this. I'm like, no, I'm not. And he's like, yeah, if you want anything nice out there, you're going to have to. I'm like, I'm going to be president of the world. I don't care. I'll just have somebody do it. Well, my presidency plans came up short, but yeah, I'm in my 50s and I'm never going to be handsy out there in the yard doing stuff, laying brick, things like that. I don't know how to do any of that. Let's see what else we got here. Matthew Miller right here. Justin Fry has to land a big time tackle in this class. It would be nice if he could land 2. Absolutely. I think 26 is going to be a year that's going to work out really well based on what's in state, but 25 is going to be important. We can kind of get into a little bit here. Let me jump into what Mello said right before that as well. Time to close on Bo and DeCorian and Henry Fanuku and Justin Hill. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit, and I'll mark kind of where we're at right now. Hey, Mika showed up. So I started talking about recruiting. Mika Hanna had the bat signal go off at her place, and she's here. So that's just kind of how that works out. So now we're guaranteed to have some recruiting questions moving forward because she may follow this stuff closer than I do. And the truth of the matter is that I probably don't follow recruiting as closely as I once did. My role with Buckeye Huddle is not as heavy recruiting, even though it's like, well, Kevin, you were on Southern Swing for 3 weeks. I am, because I'm also the photographer for the site. I am the videographer for the site. Tom is the photographer. But I do follow it pretty closely. But the point I was making is I think that Mika probably follows it closer than I do, because she has a lot of names in state of players I certainly know of. It's like, oh, I really wish we would offer so-and-so. It's like, can't offer them all, but I get it. But to this official visit weekend, they're going to have, I have 2 official visitors listed on my list. And we'll start with Henry Fanuku. We had a chance to meet him on the Southern Swing, North Crowley High School, which is like southwest Fort Worth. I lived in Dallas for 5 years. I could have sworn that North Crowley High School was closer to the mid-cities. I would have said that it would have been between Dallas and Fort Worth, not way the hell on the other side of Fort Worth. But Henry Fanuku Very impressive kid. Absolutely a guard. There is no question in my mind. You sit there and you say, well, where does he project? To me, he is a guard. And I understand that there is a need for more tackle bodies, as you know, we were talking about. Matthew Miller was mentioning, an elite offensive tackle, if not two. One of the things to remember on offensive tackles, especially the elite ones, is that they just don't happen in dozens and dozens and dozens out there. You have to find them. Sometimes guys that are 4 and 5 stars don't pan out. Offensive line to me is by far the most difficult position to project because so much work needs to be done at that position. A lot of times with some players, you're going to have to break them down to build them back up. And that's not an emotional thing or anything. That's body weight. And trust me, I know about body weight right now. Okay, you come into college at 305, but we're gonna have to get you down to 275 and then put 20 pounds back on you the right way. So, and that's a lot of work and it's a lot of willpower. And sometimes that just doesn't happen. Sometimes there are kids that are 3 stars that just are willing to put in the work or just got slept on, or, there was just all those types of things. So with Henry Fanuku, he's somebody who's not played a ton of football. He is, he was born overseas. He was born in Africa, moves to the States. So that's one thing there too, is that he doesn't have necessarily a lot of family history in DFW. So he's somebody I think that could probably be less affected by distance from home of schools that he's looking at. Now, I really like Ohio State's chances there, as the dog has decided to start squeaking on a toy next to me. And then let's go to Caden Strayhorn, who's at IMG Academy. He's somebody else who I would kind of look at as a guard. I mean, 6'3", 295. He's not, we're definitely talking about elite athletes when we're saying, oh, 6'3" ain't that tall. I mean, maybe in the NBA, but 6'3" ain't that tall. But another interior lineman, in my opinion, originally out of the state of Michigan, if I recall, listed as a 3-star, which, I don't know. I haven't watched enough tape on him, but another player that I think that Ohio State has a pretty okay chance with. But what, he's going to go to LSU later in the month. He's going to go to the team up north later in the month. We'll see kind of where that one goes. But those were the 2 offensive linemen, and I'm going to try and weave in and out of talking about the kids that are going to be visiting, my thoughts on them. Let me mark the 2 off that we've talked about. If you come into the show a little bit late and I don't talk about a kid that you're listening on, jump in later and say, hey, I missed what you said on so-and-so. These are the only 2 players that I've talked about at this point. So anybody who's here right now, you've not missed anybody. No reason to go back and say, oh, have you talked about Justin Hill? Have you talked about Vernell Brown? No, I've not talked about anybody but the offensive lineman. But if you come in late and you have missed a couple, listen to the replay. Listen to it twice. Listen to it 10 times. And leave a comment. Hit that thumbs up. Hit the bell. Subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to write us a 5-star review. All of that helps feed the algorithm, gets us distributed to more people, and means that I can go out and have more tacos on Tuesdays. So all of that, very, very important. Let me scroll back up to where we are. Mello thinks that Ohio State lands David Sanders. David Sanders, certainly the biggest offensive line name on Ohio State's board and a lot of schools' board. I mean, he was like the number 1 overall player at one point, according to one of the services. Still probably the number 1 offensive lineman. I think that Ohio State certainly has done a lot to move up in this one. Do I feel Ohio State's number 1? I don't know. I don't feel that anybody is in a position right now with David Sanders to where they should sit there and say, we legitimately lead on this one. And if I was going to have to pick a program for that, it would probably be Clemson. But I think Ohio State has gone from, I like the idea of Ohio State. I'm going to follow through with all of this and keep Ohio State on my list, to I think Ohio State is maybe second for them. And I'm not really willing to say how close I think 1 and 2 are. I mean, they could be 1 and 1A. I mean, I think that Ohio State has done a lot. I think that David Sanders is really doing the process the right way. He hasn't made any preconceived decisions or anything. Hell, he threw on a Nebraska official just for, as the story goes, Dylan Raiola asked him. Well, I mean, I don't think Dylan Raiola is going to be able to be the Pied Piper of recruiting all that much longer. But if he already knew he was going to go to Clemson or something, I don't know if, as a North Carolina kid, that I am going to Nebraska for an official visit. Now, official visits are all well and good, and we can all snicker and tell the jokes of, recruiting hostesses and everything else. But I don't know. If I were a recruit, and it's different now, because it used to be, well, you only get 5 official visits. You can only have 5. So what are the 5? Now you can take as many as you want in terms of official visit weekends. You just can't double up. You can't say, well, I'm going to take 5 visits, all of them to Ohio State. I'm going to take 5 visits, 2 to USC, 2 to Miami, and 1 to Florida State. You get one. You get one bite at the apple, and that's it. But there are a lot of apples out there. But you can't bite the same apple twice. But I don't think that David Sanders is that far along in his decision-making process in terms of going from 5 or 6 to 1. I don't think, he has done a lot. He has every offer out there. So he's done a lot to get to 5 or 6 from 70 or whatever you may have there. But I don't think he's necessarily gotten to the point of where he knows and he's just playing out the string. I'm going to set a date on the calendar that I'm going to decide. And until then, I'm just going to act uncommitted. That's not the vibe I've ever gotten with David Sanders. And we did get to talk to him at the very beginning of the Southern Swing. Thank you to all of the athletes who took the time to speak to us. That was important and fantastic. And let me straighten up my shirt. I slept for crap last night. No naturals, obviously. And I woke up this morning at about 5 after 10. I'm like, oh no, I've got to do a show at 11. What the hell am I doing? So there you go. Wingman Ted said they didn't get the bell notification. Hope all is well. Hey, it's Friday. That's good. The bell notification is far from absolute. Far from absolute when it comes to YouTube. It is not a feature that I have any control over. I'm not saying that Wingman Ted is saying that I have any control over it, but it's problematic. So the best way of knowing when we have a show is by being a member at BuckeyeHuddle.com, because I do generally post in advance when I'm going to do a show. Now, I would like the bell system to work better. I think it would do better for our numbers. Again, as I said, I know now that I couldn't have picked a worse time slot to book today's show. I don't think if I tried, I could have picked a worse time slot, with the EA deep dive video being out, with the Mark Rogers show already going on, both of us starting at 11. I totally spaced when I was told earlier in the week that we weren't going to go on Wednesday. I was trying to get clear of another Zoom call that I had today, moved away from my usual 1 p.m. window, and here we are. But those of you who are here with me, thank you. Thank you for being a big supporter of the Big Me Kickoff, which we will really get going up in earnest here soon, especially with the football camp starting June 5th. But before we get to the football camps, it's official visit weekend. It is official visit weekend, and that is big. And I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 players listed here. Now, the thing I will say about visit lists, schools really are not putting these lists out to their media members. This is all the work of recruiting guys, tracking down the news and putting it together. So of the 13 names on here, one or two could maybe not show up. There may be a name or two we don't know about. I mean, so these lists are not gospel by any stretch of the imagination. Generally, your lists at the beginning of the season are not going to have as many guys that don't make it in. Maybe as you go through your official visits, you about fill up at a position. And it's like, well, there's no reason to bring in this guy at this redundant position when we're not going to take him. So, take it for what it's worth. But, to this week's list, heavy wide receiver, heavy linebacker. But we'll start with linebacker because of the three linebackers that they're bringing in, two of them are commits. Eli Lee and TJ Alford are both coming in. So Eli Lee from within the state of Ohio, TJ Alford from Vero Beach, Florida. But Riley Pettijohn out of Texas is coming as well. We had the chance to talk to Riley on Southern Swing, so be sure to check that out at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle for the interview there. This is going to be important because Riley has got a couple of SEC schools, which is kind of weird to say when you're talking about University of Texas. I would say that University of Texas leads for him. A couple Big Ten schools. Ohio State certainly needs to hit a home run here. And even with that, I think you have to hit a home run and then hold on. And I know a couple months ago, Mark and I did like a projected class podcast on the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast. And I know I put Riley Pettijohn in at that point, but that was just kind of my chaos agent. There's always a name that we're not talking about enough that's going to end up in the class. And mine was putting Riley Pettijohn in the class. Well, I still think Texas leads there. But I think that having both linebackers in that are in the class and saying, look, we're going to be the guys. We are the class. This is what it's going to be. I think that that's important. So we'll see what happens there. We will get in touch with Riley after his visit is done at the end of the weekend. Wide receiver. Very important here. 5 receivers coming in. The biggest of names, and I really hesitate to even use that terminology, biggest of names, because all of these guys are dudes. DeCorian Moore out of Texas, one-time LSU commit. A lot of people have already kind of just thrown their hands up and said, well, congratulations, Texas, you're getting a good one. Well, Texas has certainly been linked to a lot of receivers this year, and it's easy to say, well, they're not going to land all of them. Well, why not? Ohio State has had classes where it's landed all of the wide receivers. I mean, they're coming off a year where they only landed 2, but when the 2 you land are Jeremiah Smith and Mylan Graham, still think that Brian Hartline's pretty good at the recruiting game. But DeCorian Moore, certainly the biggest name, but not to be outdone. You also have Vernell Brown out of Orlando. We had a chance to talk to Brown. We did not get the chance to talk to DeCorian. We tried like hell. We tried like hell to talk to him when we were on the Southern Swing. He just recently decommitted. I'll tell you one way that you're not going to endear yourself to these recruits. One way that you're not going to win any favor. One way you're not going to get them to answer the phone. And that is to annoy the living bleep out of them. You just can't do it. There is a very real line of pushing to get the story versus being an absolute pest. So Mark did everything humanly possible while we were on the trip for us to get in front of DeCorian Moore. Just didn't happen. But we did talk to Vernell Brown. There's a lot of debate on which direction he is going to go, but we'll see there. Ohio State also bringing in receiver Dalen McCutcheon also from Texas. I think that one's important. Javon McFadden and Winston Watkins. And there was a minute where, 2 commitments ago with Watkins that I would have said, oh, he's going to Ohio State. Well, he's bounced around a little bit, and, he was at Colorado for a hot minute. Where else was he committed? FSU? I'm trying to remember. I think it may have been FSU, but certainly he was committed to Colorado as well. I think that's the problem when you commit a couple years out. Maybe you don't know what you don't know, and certainly of what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you want. There's going to be somebody out there's going to say the kid's got commitment issues. No, he's a kid. He's a kid. So it is what it is, and the way that we're seeing college sports changing, will probably ban commitments or something at some point. Come up with all different terminology of how this all works. The dog is freaking out. She put a toy underneath where we keep all of our DVDs. Probably have not opened it in 5 years. I couldn't tell you the last time I've watched a DVD. She's going to have to wait, but we're not going a full hour on this show, I don't think, unless when I get back to the comments, things have just gone absolutely nuts. And then if that's the case, we'll go about an hour, but we'll see. Let me mark the players that I've talked about at least once, just so I know that I've fulfilled my responsibilities of talking about the upcoming official visit weekend. That's what I called the show. I better talk about it. The show, once again, that I scheduled at the worst of times, but it's just me and my closest friends in here, so that's fine. We're not quite to the bottom of the hour, but let's reset for a second. You're watching the Big Me Kickoff. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. It is Friday, May 31st. Show's brought to you in part by our friends at No Naturals. Over at No Naturals, use code HUDDLE10 for 10% off your order at shop.nonaturals.com. So there you go. With that, let's jump over here to Wingman Ted as we step away from official visits for a minute. We've got a couple more to talk about. Kevin, have you heard all the stuff swirling around Penn State's head coach? I can't make sense of all the information from what's clickbait and what's real. Well, what's real is a doctor who was let go, forced out, if you will, got a nice big settlement, seven-figure settlement for a wrongful termination. This certainly does not bode well, excuse me, for the image of James Franklin. I was asked by a couple of friends at various points yesterday if I thought this was going to be the end of James Franklin, and I don't think so. Certainly, you're looking at a school in Penn State that has had its fair share of bad decisions, unfortunate circumstances, a predator, if you will, in Sandusky and Jerry Sandusky. Just a lot of bad stuff heaped on there. But this situation don't be messing around with player safety. We are in such a player safety era. And yes, we all love going back and watching that Zach Dumas hit, the Tito Paul hit, one of them against Auburn, one of them against Michigan State. We love seeing all that. These poor guys scrambling their brains out there doing some of that stuff. Player safety, I think, is part of player empowerment, even though, it should have never been in question about player safety. That should have always been a real aspect of it all. I don't think it's something that would take him down, but I think it's something that James Franklin, in my opinion, this is not based on direct fact or anything like that. In my opinion, has certainly been looking for an escape hatch from Penn State. His name has certainly been, mentioned in other coaching searches. Now, me putting his name on a hot board versus James and his representatives speaking to another school, there is a wide chasm there. There's a wide chasm of what that all is and about. But there have also been other underlying issues with the Franklin tenure at Penn State. I just don't think that here on May 31st, that story really kind of came out, I think, on May 30th. So let's just call it June. You're probably not looking to make a significant change unless it is absolutely necessary. I don't think we've heard a ton of groundswell out there from people who are undecided on James Franklin of, all right, he's got to go. We haven't seen that. So I don't think that it is going to run him out. But to Wingman Ted's comment, about there being some clickbait and some other stuff, I don't know what else is out there. So there might be something in Wingman Ted maybe punching his keyboards like, damn it, Noon, I'm talking about this, you big dummy, you big sexy dummy. Why, that's not what I'm talking about. And if that's the case, I'm sorry, but I think that there's some very legitimate news out there at this point. I don't think it's necessarily going to run them, which isn't necessarily the vein of the question, but that's certainly what I've been asked by some friends. That's what I've been asked by some friends. So let's keep going here. Well, let's get back into some of the guys that they are bringing on. Now, Bo Jackson, the running back, he is going to be on campus for his official visit. I think this one's very important. I've felt for a long time that the ideal running back class for Ohio State is going to be Bo Jackson and Jordan Davison. Well, then along the way, Isaiah West decommits from Kentucky, and all of these crystal balls and everything else come in there. And I don't doubt that if Ohio State gives him the green light, that he is a member of the Buckeyes. There is a lot of concern from friends of mine about Bo Jackson. As recently as about 10:30 last night, I was getting a direct message from a friend of mine, all concerned about Bo Jackson and the UGA. The UGA beat is a very good beat in terms of guys are really good at their jobs of reporting. And there's been all the stories about how Bo Jackson loved his Georgia visit. I have no doubt in my mind that Bo Jackson loved his Georgia visit, unofficial. But what was he supposed to come out of it and be like, I hated it. It sucked. I mean, we don't generally get those types of interviews. Generally, those interviews don't happen. So I think that the proliferation of information coming out of the Georgia beat, it's just story after story about how much he loved it. And sometimes perception becomes reality, and Ohio State fans a lot are coming to this false reality that Bo Jackson is going to get away. We're going to come out of this weekend, and Bo Jackson is going to talk about how Ohio State checked off all the boxes, and he really didn't need to see anything, but it was great to have a chance to to talk to Coach Locke and talk to Ryan Day and Chip Kelly and Trevion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, even though those backs wouldn't be here when Bo Jackson would get here, and it's going to all. I've really got a lot to think about. I mean, I could write the story right now. I could write the story because it's not like you come out of these visits and are completely thrown for like a loop. Every visit is going to be good. Every visit it's a variation of I needed to see a lot and they explained it, or I didn't need to really see anything. It was all about relationships. So that you check off that box and how to write a post-visit story and fill in the blanks on the players that he hung out with, and maybe an event, and I've got a lot to think about, unless it's somebody who you already felt was a heavy lean to the school. I don't really doubt that Ohio State's going to get Bo Jackson. I think that the only way Ohio State doesn't get Bo Jackson is if Ohio State shuffles its board a little bit, or if Ohio State has 3 or 4 guys, it's like, we're going to take the first 2 to commit, and it doesn't happen. But I can tell you, I know there are coaches on the Ohio State staff that are pounding the table for Bo Jackson, and he could commit today, tomorrow, whatever. I mean, it's not a check with me type of commitment. Let me see what the boss, whether or not the boss is really Ryan Day or Mark Pantoni. Kind of a little bit of an inside joke over there. But I think that I am not at all bearish on Ohio State's chances of landing Bo Jackson. So we have 2 more official visitors to talk about. Let me say hi to some people here. Mark Fetters is saying hello. How's it going, Mark Fetters? we just got a lot of just a lot of things being kind of coming in and out on the chat. Is there any chance we offer Nolan Davenport and Jake Cook? Well, we're going into camp season, and you just have to kind of wait and see on there. I mean, just it's names just kind of come up and disappear, and it's one of those things. I mean, it's one of those things. Where is their board looking? If they feel really good with a couple other tackles, I don't know why you necessarily offer Nolan Davenport or somebody like that, because we're at the point now where I don't think if you offer a player from Ohio that they're just going to grab it. But that it's always been the case of, if you offer a player out of Ohio, you better be ready to accept that commitment at that very second. If his dream truly was, I want to play for Ohio State, and then you offer him and you're like, whoa, 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 you're moving way too quick. This is just a coffee date. This is just a coffee date. This isn't even a dinner date. That's just not going to work well. That's just not going to win friends and influence people, if you will. So you have to kind of wait. We haven't had a camp yet. The first camp is June 5th. Now, there's always the view of the rising seniors who have maybe done camps in the past. Why do I need to camp again? But if you're shopping for that offer, and I'm not saying that's necessarily the case with either of these guys, if you're shopping for that offer, there's something to be said about getting out there and showing how you've bettered your game, and how you can't live without me. You need me on your team. But the point is yeah, could they be offered? Yes, absolutely. Anybody really could be offered if you have eligibility. But with that being said, that I don't see it being something that's happening in the next couple of days. I think that you have to kind of wait and see where the board clears out, because let me throw another situation at you. And we're not going to say this position. We're not going to say certain players, because I don't like talking about players as if they're just pieces on a chessboard. That's not fair to anybody. But let's say that you have a position and you fill up at it, and you filled up with maybe some guys that were not your frontline top guys, and then one of those guys wants to commit. Then what do you do? Do you have to sit there and ghost a kid? That's crappy. I'm not going to say that doesn't happen in college football recruiting. It absolutely does. But no, you do that, especially in state, to an in-state kid, and your name's mud at that point. Your name is mud. You just don't want to do that. So I know, Mika, you've heard this, drink. You've heard me make this speech before. I had it prepared in my, my big book of sports speeches, but you have to handle in-state recruiting a little bit differently. And the risk you run is, okay, what happens if you offer one of these guys in July? Is it too late? And then we're going to all have the gift of foresight, and foresight is always 2020. We're going to have the gift of foresight and be like, well, if they only would have offered him sooner. Well, if you would have offered him sooner, would you have had a chance to land this guy or land that guy? So, I mean, it's a huge game of cause and effect. And I wish I could sit there and say, Mika, everybody you want them to offer, they're going to offer. But the problem is that if you do that, you may not end up with, quote unquote, the best class available. And when you have a national reach like Ohio State does, you have to be mindful in how you put it together. So that's what I will say there. I don't want it to be like, well, I'm saying this kid just isn't worthy of an offer. I'm just saying that a kid is just, at this point, Ohio State has not pulled the trigger. Well, duh. I wouldn't have asked the question if that weren't the case. But it's what it is. I mean, it is what it is. And it doesn't change the fact that, I just have Nolan Davenport's profile in front of me. He has 33 offers according to one of the services. I mean, he's got, major offers out there, but you just have to play differently if you are Ohio State, with him being an Ohio kid, especially playing at Massillon, Washington, a school that Ohio State would like to be able to continue to recruit. Let's just keep scrolling through a little bit as I'm losing my voice. I don't understand what the hell's going on. Wingman Ted, Dorian Brew from an outsider seems to be a check chaser. I'm going to disagree wholeheartedly here, but we can still be friends. We can still be friends. Dorian Brew, we had the chance to talk to Dorian Brew on Southern Swing. I hope you had a chance to check that out. Once again, you can see all of those videos at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. And of course, at Buckeye Huddle, we wrote up short stories on every interview as well, but be sure to read the story and watch the video. Dorian Brew has his list of schools, and he's not wavered. It's not a case of, well, I'm going to bring this school on, because if you're a check chaser, why are you going to limit yourself down to just a couple of schools? Why are you just going to limit yourself down to a couple of schools? Now, when you are a guy and you could kind of pick the college that you want to go to, you could sit there and have 134 offers if you really desired. He's not, I mean, the schools that he has on there, you have Ohio State, you have Oregon, you have, whatever. Uh, that's fine. They're all going to be big programs that are going to have well functioning NIL arms and everything else. Wingman Ted, I followed up. As I said, an outsider. Obviously, I'm not as plugged in as you, Kevin. Glad we can still be friends. Of course, you're all my friends. You're all my friends. No, Dorian Brew is not a big interview guy either. So I always worry sometimes where you have somebody that you don't necessarily get to talk to. And that's not the case for us. Again, we talk to him directly. So things get kind of shaped by narratives. And maybe you're feeling that way because of a narrative that you saw out there or something like that. But I can assure you that Dorian Brew is, if you're going to offer me a check, I'm not going to say no. Sign me up. I'm not turning down money. Goodwill and a great smile don't pay the bills. So he is somebody who I think that is going to end up close to family, whether or not that's Ohio State or Texas. That is my belief there. And that's more stuff that I would generally be saying over at Buckeye Huddle, because we try to leave some of that stuff behind the paywall because, hey, we got to eat. So be sure to check us out at Buckeye Huddle. But I think he ends up staying closer to family. He's kind of a quiet kid. I think that there's a certain, closeness with the family, which, everybody should have. But I don't see LSU or Oregon necessarily working out there. But I really, to the point, don't see a bag chase happening here. I just don't see that. I certainly do see that out there in the recruiting world, and the reality is who the hell am I to tell somebody how to do their business? Especially somebody who's growing up with very meager, means. If you can sit there and take care of your family and be the breadwinner, so to speak, for a couple of years, do it. Now, I don't want this to turn into some sort of NIL speech and everything else. I want to preface by saying I've been very pro compensate the athletes more than just the scholarship. So I'm not getting into a case of saying that, oh, NIL is bad or whatever. But I think that some of your top players need to make sure that they're making the decision about, yeah, I can sit there and get a couple $100,000 a year for a couple of years and change the short term, or I can go somewhere and really get developed and sign a couple of NFL contracts and have multi-generational wealth. But when your family is struggling and your home unit isn't necessarily how you want it to be and everything else, if you can sit there and put an infusion of cash to rectify some things, that's very important at the time too. So I don't know. Wingman Ted, from a recruiting perspective, do you think these big events where players can meet each other are more effective, or the one-on-ones where the moms are more telling of where a kid goes? Well, I think that these kids are all going to play against each other at various camps and everything else. But when you have these events of where they're all together, and I'm not talking necessarily Under Armour game or All American game, because all those kids largely are signed by that point. But I think when you have things of where kids are able to spend time together, they recruit each other. I mean, they all have chat threads and everything else, so they're always working on all of that. But I don't necessarily think that a kid is going to go out there and convince somebody whose mom is calling a lot of the shots to make, to do this or do that. I think that it always comes into being able to recruit mom. I mean, if mom's on board, you're generally there. Now, that doesn't always mean if mom's on board that the kid's on board. We've certainly seen some videos on signing day in the past that are great representations of that. But I think that every kid is a little bit different. And I think that there are some kids that you're probably going to identify that you want to have in on a smaller setting. That maybe they are not a huge extrovert and are not going to compete for attention during an event like a big official visit weekend. I mean, they're not going to speak up. And while there is a structure to make sure everybody's getting talked to and attended to and spending time with their potential future position coach and everything else, I think that there are certain players out there. If I were scheduling this, if I were putting this all together, that I would want to isolate more from the group. And that's not to say that, I need to completely extricate them from the situation and bring them in on a solo weekend. But if there's a like Michigan, when Michigan's a home game and it's a recruiting weekend, and let's go back 10 years prior to the early official visit weekends, because Ohio State's going to push through most of its officials here in the summer, and you have 30 official visitors in. I mean, you just can't get to everybody. You can't put all of that kind of effort in that you want to. So there needs to be an identification of, if you have any players like that. I think that somebody like Dorian Brew, I would want to make sure that I really made sure. And again, the way that I see Dorian versus the way that Dorian hangs with his guys is going to be completely different. The CJ Stroud that we saw versus the CJ Stroud that was yucking it up with the players, there was a significant difference there. So you don't know. Let me talk about the last two official visitors, just so I am in the free and clear of that as we start to wrap up the show. Commitment safety Deshaun Stewart will be on campus. And then another big one, can't believe he is the last player we are talking about, Justin Hill out of the state of Ohio. He is a must-get for Ohio State, plain and simple. And of course, there's going to be a lot of fear of other programs going out there and telling him that, we can do this for you and we can do that for you. Is Ohio State still talking that jack nonsense with you? When was the last time Ohio State ran the jack? I think, though, that Ohio State has done enough work there that they hold a pretty significant lead. And I think that this weekend could go a long way in making that lead insurmountable. Now, nothing is an absolute when it comes to recruiting. About the closest absolute I have is that I'm absolutely sure that Devin Sanchez will sign with Ohio State. There's an absolute, 99.99999% for me. Talk about a kid who's locked in. Devin Sanchez is locked in. Very impressive interview with him over on the YouTube channel, which most of you are on right now. So be sure to check that out. We have a folder of Southern Swing, which has all of our Southern Swing videos. We make sure to tag all of them within that folder so you can check it out, or check out my travel log over at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where you can get a year's subscription for $69.99, 40% off the regular price. So why not do it? Certainly in the closing moments of this promotion, don't miss out. You would hate to be right on the fence. Don't do it, and then womp womp. Sorry, promotion's over. Do it now. It's Friday. It's payday. It's almost the first of the month. This is the time to do it. Just do it. So there you go. That is Ohio State's official visit weekend. Mark Givler, myself, pretty much the whole staff, we are going to be on call this weekend for all of the recruiting news, but certainly Mark Givler will be as our recruiting guru. You don't want to miss a single bit of all of that as we have a big official visit weekend coming to the town of Columbus, the Ohio State University. Let's see what this first weekend turns out, but it's going to be hits after hits after hits when it comes to official visits. They've just got big weekend after big weekend after big weekend. It's like those contests that you see like on Twitter. One of you can only pick one of these four concert lineups. You can sit there and see our official visitor list over on the Huddle board, a member exclusive at BuckeyeHuddle.com. And it's like, I don't know which weekend is the biggest, because you've got DeCorian Moore, who certainly is the apple of the eye of a lot of recruitniks out there. Bo Jackson, Riley Pettijohn, Justin Hill, Vernell Brown, all these guys this weekend. But you're going to have in subsequent weekends, David Sanders. You're going to have all these other names. So I don't know. I think that once we get out of the official visit weekend, maybe I will do something on that in a written format. I don't know. I'm going to do one more thing. I think we're all caught up. Apologies again. I picked the worst possible showtime today. I will do better. Opposite of the Mark Rogers show, which I should have been appearing on. Opposite of the EA college football gameplay deep dive. I did not know. So just did not put this up at the right time. I hope many of you have caught us in the rebroadcast. And if you miss any of our live content, you can watch the rebroadcast on the YouTube channel, of course. And I do turn it into a podcast as well, because I know that a lot of people want to listen to my beautiful baritone voice while they're driving to or from work. Or maybe not. But that's what I got for now. So, have a great weekend as we wrap up. I will be on a couple times next week as well, certainly with the camps coming up. There will be pre and post camp. Not sure if it will be under the Big Me Kickoff brand or one of the other brands here on the channel, but be sure to check out all of our shows. I want to thank our friends at No Naturals as well. I also want to thank my friends at WagerWire, just because they're awesome. Download the app at the App Store, whether or not that is the Google Play Store or the iOS, whatever, Apple Store. I don't know what the hell they call themselves. WagerWire, all one word. Sign up for accounts, sync your sports books, bet calculator, all sorts of great stuff. Wingman Ted, really quick, saying, great show, Kevin. Hopefully you'll still have beaver nuggets to snack on. If I weren't walking around in gym shorts right now and would show off my pasty white legs, I would jump up and run to the pantry and show you I still have a bag and a half of beaver nuggets. So we have not made our way through it. I told my wife that I would that I bought her a bag and I would stay out of it. She's managed to leave mine alone, but she hasn't broken into hers. So if she waits too long, it's gone. I'll say that. But till next time, thanks a lot. Talk to you very soon.